Good morning, class. We were doing the chapter on human resources, where we were talking about the factors affecting distribution of population. We were doing the geographical factors, and in that we had covered the topography. That means the relief area, the place where we are residing affects the distribution of population. That means obviously the mountains or the desert areas which are topographically uneven, there the population would be not so dense. Not many people would love to reside in a place like mountain or in a desert, whereas the plains, the fertile lands, they are the areas which are, according to the topography, more convenient for the population to reside in. Then the second factor we talked of was the climate. Obviously, the dry climate or a hot climate would not be preferred by people to reside, whereas a moderate kind of a climate where the temperatures are moderate, and the areas having temperate climate are would be more densely populated. And they have told you about the topography also, the places which are good, like China, Japan, India, Bangladesh, Europe, Eastern USA, etc. And for climate, the places which are suitable are again China, Japan, Vietnam, Bangladesh, India, etc. So you need to know these. Now, before I forget, let me tell you, for your final exams, no need to prepare map work. Okay, no need to prepare any map work. We will, all the teachers, all the geography teachers of class 8 have unanimously decided that we will not be giving you map work. Okay, so just relax. Is this much okay? Are you feeling happy and good? Next, we talk of soil. Happy? Send me an emoji, okay? Okay, soil. Food is the basic need of any population. Thank you. And fertile soil, it provides plenty of food. So the areas having fertile soils are densely populated. Obviously, the fertile plains such as that of Ganga and Brahmaputra in India, then Hongho River in China, Nile in Egypt, etc. These areas which are next to the rivers, those river basin areas which are rich in fertile soil, where the crops are growing in abundance, where the soil is rich enough to give a lot of yield, are the areas which are more densely populated. Then we talk of water supply. Now, these points, you all know they are very easy. Obviously, these points depend on these points depends the density of the population. And these are quite easy. Next, we talk of water supply. Water is the basic biological need of human beings. You all know that water is used for drinking, for domestic purposes, for industrial purposes, and also for irrigation. Therefore, areas having plenty of fresh water, those areas are thickly populated. Then we talk of the river valleys of the world are densely populated, while deserts are sparsely populated. So we know that the areas which are rich in water supply, the areas which have good and fertile soil, the climate which is moderate, and the relief features which are plain and fertile and even lands, those are fertile. Then the next criteria of densely populated areas are minerals. Now, obviously, minerals are the sources that provide us an opportunity for development of our industries. So, therefore, areas like mineral deposits are more populated. The areas which are rich in minerals, those areas would be more populated. Why? Because human resource would be needed for extracting those minerals, and so people would not reside very far away from these places. They will reside nearby only. So the wherever the areas having rich mineral deposits would be populated. Okay, like they have given the example, the western and the central Europe is densely populated due to the availability of iron, copper, zinc, and other minerals. Now, the eastern USA is also densely populated due to the mineral deposits. Now, we know that USA is also, especially the eastern part, is very richly populated, densely populated, because it also has a lot of mineral deposits. Okay. Then we come on to stage of economic progress. due to economic progress of an area. That means economic means money related. Now, if any area is progressing economically, that means is enhancing and yielding lot of money. Example, like in India, we know that Bangalore, it's an educational hub. It's a technologically advanced place. So there, economically, there will be more progress. Its population supporting capacity increases. So if that area has low production of food items, then these items can be imported from foreign countries, and in return, they export manufactured goods from industries. Examples are Britain, Germany, Switzerland, etc. are examples of such countries. Now, these are the developed countries, and they have a lot of facilities. And so even if they have less production of food, they export it to their places, and also they import other they have in return for these food items. Okay, so the technically advanced places, if they are having shortage of food, they take that food and get it for themselves from other places which have it in abundance. Okay, so these are the various geographical factors. Okay, now we come on to socio cultural and economic factors. Now we will take them as second, third and the fourth factor. So factors affecting distribution of population. First is geographical factors, and we discussed all of them, the subheadings under it. Now we come on to social factors. Then we'll go on to cultural, and then in the end, we'll go on to the economic factors. So let's take the next heading as social factors. Now, among that, areas of better housing, education, and health facilities are more densely populated, namely Pune. Now, Pune is another very prominent place in India. It has all the facilities which have been mentioned. It has good housing capacity. Education is it is an educational hub there also, and very prim and proper. So those areas which have socially advanced factors, those are also very densely populated. Then we come on to the cultural factors. Now, social customs, beliefs, attribute towards life also affect the distribution of population. Like places with religious or cultural significance attract people, like Varanasi, Jerusalem, Vatican City are a few examples. Before the First World War, Chinese people worshipped the graveyards of their ancestors and did not want to migrate, which caused increase in population in China. So they are telling you the reason that they had stuck there because of the factors. They used to believe that they have to pray in the graveyard of their ancestors, and that is the reason they did not migrate to any other place. And that is the reason why China is very densely populated. Rather, it is the highest in population score presently, India being the second. So these are the cultural factors. Then we come on to the economic factors, which tell us that industrial areas provide employment opportunities which attract large number of people to these areas. For example, Osaka in Japan, Mumbai in India are two densely populated areas. So economic factors, again, as I told you, the money related factors. Okay. Then we come on to the next heading, fifth wala, the fifth factor, that is population growth, is another factor which results in the distribution of population. Okay. Now, when man started agriculture, the imperatives for child spacing disappeared and population started growing at a faster rate. It is generally agreed that agriculture and natality go hand in hand. The prime reason for this is the perceived economic value of children in farming families or children are commonly viewed as economic bonuses. They serve as extra hands on the farm and take care of parents in their old age. The distribution of population prior to the development of agriculture covered only parts of the old continents and numbered only in lakhs. In 1500 AD, the world's population was about 425 million. Today it has grown to more than 6 billion, with a million children being born every day. The rapid growth of population since 1800 is largely due to improvements in food production and medical knowledge. Please underline these two: food production, medical knowledge. In many parts of the world, rapid population growth causes serious problems such as food shortage and overcrowding of cities. So here comes a very important factor which they discuss here and talk of is that growth of population. The earlier, when the technologies were not so advanced, let's talk of the early stages of man. Now we all know that man was a nomad and he was a herder, and he was gathering food and he was moving from one place to another, living a life of a nomad. Now at that time the population was very little. Why? Because the mortality rate was very high. People were dying from covering one area to another because of the hardships of the weather, and also they were dependent upon the other factors for their food supply. But as the technology advanced, as they learned the use and applicability of agriculture, they started growing their own food. And once he was a food producer, then came a vast change. They started living a settled life. They had more time and energy for spending a stable life. That means they were no longer facing the dangers of nature. They were no longer roaming around in the forest looking for hunting of animals. They were not dying of hunger. They had enough food. They were not killed by wild animals. Then in the later part, this agriculture led to a factor that there were more children in the house, in the family, and the children with more, the family with more children, these children acted as the hands of giving work, giving aid to the farming facilities. That means there were more work, more hands to work in the fields. All these reasons, they led to the increase in the population. And now when we talk of the recent times, the food production is so much, that means nobody is dying in hunger. Plus the medical advancement, the medical knowledge has gone on so high levels that people are saved from any big and small ailment. Thus the population growth has increased because the death rate has gone down. So this is a very important factor. Is this much clear to each one of you? Please leave an emoji if you have understood.
Yes,
Next we
ma'am.
come on. Next we come on to population change. Thank you. Thank you. So next we come on to population change. And here we talk of the population change refers to change in the number of people during a specific time. The world population has not been stable. It has increased manyfold due to changes in the number of births and deaths. Until the 1800s, the world population grew steadily but slowly. Large number of babies were born, but they died early too. This was due to lack of health facilities, unavailability of sufficient food, and low productivity of food crops. So now, as I told you, that earlier the population was stable and was not increasing at such a good blow, but now the population is increasing. So what are the factors which kept a check earlier? So the earlier possibilities of increased death rate was the children, they were firstly not born in large numbers, but if these babies were born even in large numbers, they could not survive. And why? What were the reasons? Because of the lack of good health facilities available. Then there was also death rate because of the unavailability of food. Sufficient food was not there for them. Then other reason for the death rate was the low production of food crops. The crops were not in large number to feed all the mouth. With the increasing population, there was death rate also increasing. But in 1850s, the world's population was estimated to be 1,000 million. 150 years later, in 1970s, the world population reached 3 billion. This is often called population explosion. Now, let me tell you this new word, population explosion. as the word tells, that means the population grew to such a huge number that it exploded. Now here it doesn't mean कि कोई explosion होके फूट पड़ा. No, it means that the population increased drastically. There was rapid increase in population. And now, due to the following reasons, now what were the reasons because of which the population grew? It was increase in food productivity and better food supply. That means not only the food was produced in large number, but it was also easily supplied from one place to another through the increase of mode of transportation. So, and people were more knowledgeable. The next was reduce in death rate due to improvement in medical facilities. Now, the death rate, which was earlier very high because of the poor medical facilities, now it grew to a good potential, and this increased the birth rate and it checked the death rate. Okay, then increase in birth rate was one of the reasons why also the population exploded. The population increased drastically. Okay, now they've given you a chart, kind of a description where they told you about the various populations and in the years in which these have doubled. The period is also given, the years, and it's an approximation where you see that in 1650 there were just 500 million people considering as the population. But in 1850, it became to 1,000 million in just 200. Then by 2012, it is 8,000 million. And in just 37 years, it had grown so much. From 4,000 million to 8,000, it just doubled. So just in 37 years, then they talk of the components of population change. That means what were the remarkable factors which led to the population change. Change means there is a drastic increase in the birth rate and drastic decrease in the death rate. So what were the various components? Let us see. Following demographic factors are important, which bring changes in the population size of a country. Now, what are these? Birth rate, death rate, migration, natural growth rate. Then they have talked in details about the various other migration, immigration, and that means or out migration, and immigration, that is in migration. That means moving around from one place to another or from that place to a new place, to their homeland. So these are the various factors which are the basic components of the population change. Okay, that means if a place is having a particular population number, why has it changed? It must have changed because of the birth rate. That means the number of live births per 1,000 people is preferred as the birth rate. So they have given you what is the birth rate. It is the new population members added because of the birth on every 1,000 people. It is called the birth rate, and the death rate also. The number of deaths per year per 1,000 people is called death rate. Okay, that means out of 1,000 people, how many died? It is the approximation that they take out and consider it as a death rate. Then migration. It is the movement of people in and out of the area. Either you are moving in or you're moving out of that particular area. That is called migration. Then natural growth rate. Births and deaths are the natural causes of population change. We all know that. Now, the difference between the birth rate and the death rate of a country is called the natural growth rate. That means whatever the difference is between the birth rate and the death rate. Difference means subtracting the number of people born and the number of people died. So who all survived? That is called the growth rate. Okay. The population increase in the world is mainly due to rapid increase in natural growth rate. So what is the reason for the population increase? It is the natural growth rate which has increased. That means the lifespan of people has turned more, and that is the reason why there is a population growth in that area. The growth rate of that area or of the world has increased. Is this much clear to each one of you? Then we talk of migration. Good, thank you. Migration is another important way by population way why population size changes. There is movement of people within a country or between countries. Migration may be of two types: immigration and immigration. Now, immigration means out migration. That means wherever you're living, you're moving away from there. Supposing you are living in India, and if you're going to Canada, that is called immigration. Now, in immigration, people leave a country and move towards other countries. Sudan is an example of a country that has experienced a loss in population number due to out migration, or what is it? Out migration, in other words, is called immigration. That means people have migrated to different areas from Sudan because of the various wars there and the lack of food production there. So people have shifted to better places. Like in India, since it is overpopulated, many a times it is not so developed. It is considered not so developed country. So people most of the time move on to either Canada or Australia for their better opportunities, for better job facilities. So this is called e-migration. When from your homeland you move to other country, it is called immigration. Then immigration or in-migration, when people arrive in a country from other countries, it is called the situation of immigration. Now, countries like the United States of America, Australia, Canada, etc., have gained population due to immigration. So these are the factors which lead to the moving in and out of the population from that area. Now, the general trend of international migration is from the less developed nations to the more developed nations in search of better employment opportunities. And within a country, people mainly move from rural areas to urban areas in search of employment, education, and health facilities. So they have talked about the world level also. They are telling that most of the time international migration, that means moving from one country to another, it is happening mostly because people move from uh, developing countries to the developed countries. That means which are very advanced countries. They are people move towards that country, that nation. And when we talk of within the country, we have seen that from village people shift to the cities. Why? Because the opportunities are more advanced in these areas. So this is called migration or e-migration. Then population growth is not uniform throughout the world. Some countries experience rapid growth, whereas some recorded a slow growth rate. Kenya has high population growth due to high birth rate as it improved healthcare facilities. So please underline Kenya. Kenya is the example of again growing in its population, and it is basically because of the good health facilities which it offers. In UK, Australia, etc., population growth is slowing because of both low death and low birth rates. So there in places like UK and Australia, there are low birth rates also. Matlab, children are not born at a great speed, and also the death rate is low. So they are moving ahead with their population in a mild way. They are not over, the population growth is not very high. Okay, we stop here for today. We will take up in the next class the next heading.